Welcome to Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe, where it is your time to be kind to your mind. My guest today, Dr. Wendy, is a trained psychologist, mother, wife, and friend. She understands the value of teaching women how to live a life in line with their strengths, values, and dreams instead of living life on autopilot and checking the boxes of the prescribed life. Dr. Wendy is a Stanford trained positive psychologist and life strategist for women. She helps women design the most meaningful, intentional, and fulfilling lives using her signature method, Your Life by Design method. Utilizing strengths, values, and evidence based approach, Dr. Wendy has helped thousands of women worldwide live the life they dream of. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe, where it is your time to be kind to your mind. I am so excited for my guest today, Dr. Wendy. We are going to be just chopping it up, and I just want to hop right in with welcoming Dr. Wendy to the show. Welcome to Mind Escape Vibe. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh gosh, I'm excited too. I know we're going to have such a great conversation. So, I always like to start the show by asking all guests what's a mental victory vibe celebration for themselves. And that's something that you've done for yourself to pour into your own cup. So, Dr. Wendy, what have you done for yourself lately?
Actually, this morning I've already had this vibe. So I went to the gym. I had a great workout, but my favorite part is afterwards you get to sit in these massage chairs. So I reserved this massage chair and I paired it with an insight timer meditation. And it was just like
Yes.
the best way to start the day. It was like better than the workout. It was just that 10 minutes of time that I could just relax, feel nurtured, taken care of. It was so good. I said to myself, I need to get to the gym more so I can get
Mhm.
to the massage chair more.
That massage chair is a motivator. I'm coming back for you.
Completely. So good.
What would you say your personal empowerment theme song is?
So I also listened to that this morning, which was,
Okay.
yeah, I know it's really funny. It's been a very empowering morning. All the Above by T-Pain is my song.
Get it, girl.
It's like the best song. And the lyric of on a mission to be who I'm destined to be,
Mm.
it gets me every time. So I just blast that in the car. I just get so amped up and ready to start the day. So I'm like, I'm ready to slay today.
I know that's well, you know what? We can just start right now in this podcast. Slam for the me timers.
That's right. Absolutely.
Tell us your backstory.
So I've been a psychologist for, I think it's now 14 years somehow. And
You
I
said
transitioned
somehow.
somehow, wherever time goes, it disappears into the vortex. And I transitioned 4 years ago from doing clinical work. So primarily I worked with patients with significant anxiety and depression. Then
Mhm.
I started to burn out because I had three girls within 15 months.
Ooh.
So I had my first daughter. And then when she was 6 months old, I got pregnant with twins. So I had three kiddos under two. And it just burned me out. Having energy
Mhm.
for home plus energy for my patients, I just needed to make a different choice that I was going to support my values in this new chapter of life. So I
Mhm.
actually transitioned from doing clinical private practice into coaching. So now I coach women all over the world on designing their best lives using the science of happiness and my signature method. I really, at that point in my life, was realizing very quickly, and you do that as soon as you start to burn out, that something needed to shift pretty dramatically. But I
Mhm.
wasn't ready to let go of this work because it's so impactful. And I knew that I was meant for more, something. I just wasn't sure what it was at the time. So I did some soul searching. I did some mind mapping. I did some experimenting in my mind, like what would be a good fit for the next chapter of my career. And I
Mhm.
said to myself, what I really want the most is to help empower women to start choosing to design their own lives and to stop living on autopilot and just surviving the daily life that we live now. And then I created my coaching business, which is now a global brand. It's amazing.
I love it. You said some very impactful things there. Burnout, just designing autopilot, very all things that resonate with me because I took like 2 years to work on me because I was at
Good for
that point of
you.
burnout. So I
Good for you.
definitely understand that, and I do believe that it's needed. It's
Yes.
that stress management. I'd gotten so bad. I mean, I had adrenal burnout, and I had to fix it. I was either going to fix it or have a long list of chronic conditions for sure.
Right. That's right. And taking the time, like you had 2 years that you used to figure it out. Women often get stuck in this idea that they just need to know what's next immediately and they have to know
Mhm.
that it's going to work and it's going to be a success and that they're not going to fail. But we have to realize that we won't know how something's going to go until we try it on for size and until we get to see with our own eyes and ears and bodies if it's the right fit. So the time that we take to figure it out and experiment is completely worth every minute that we take.
Mhm. And I wouldn't have done it. Actually, I wouldn't have done it. I was a single mom. I had 3 kids, and then for a period of time, my grandson stayed with me. And but I got into a place where I was just like, "What is going on?" Angry all the time. I mean, a
Oh,
piece of lint on the carpet set you off.
yes, the
It's
littlest
nothing. It's
things.
nobody's fault that it's a piece of lint on the carpet. You know?
That's
So
right.
it's very important, and I took that time because I wanted to really work on mind and body, but a lot of people don't have that long period of time to do that. I was fortunate and blessed at a period of time where I could take more time to focus on my health and my own mental and physical and emotional well-being. What would be your recommendation for a woman that does not have long segments of time, that can't take a lot of time? Because it's hard, especially if you have young children. Little kids, they don't they love mommy and daddy. They love you very much, but it's mine. Mine. It's about them,
Yeah.
you
They don't
know?
stop needing you. They do not stop needing you. And that may change over the years as they get older, but that's still there, that foundational need. And we as moms want to provide and want to be what our kiddos need us to be as much as we can. We can't do that when we're burning out. We can't do that when we're depleted. It just doesn't work. So for the woman that doesn't have these long segments of time that she can create space to really explore other options, my advice is going to be to take the time any time that you can carve out, even if it's a minute a day, 5 minutes a day, weekend moments, to start creating your next plan, your exit strategy, why you're unhappy, to really build awareness around what's not working for you and to build awareness around what you want to create in your life instead. How would you want this to be different? Even just journaling how you feel and what you desire can be extremely empowering and powerful. And it could bring a ton of clarity without needing long segments of time to create that result. You can get started building the next chapter of your life behind the scenes while you're invested in whatever you're currently doing that you feel like you can't quite get out of yet. But creating an exit strategy and your next chapter's design can be done in the moments in between the meetings and in the moments in between the naps and in the feedings and all of those things. There's space for us to really carve, but we do need to protect it and it needs to be intentional.
I agree. I love that. That's some great advice. Small segments of time. That's my go-to. When I learned how to take the time that I had and take a little bit of that time just for me, game changer. So
Game
definitely
changer.
great advice.
Especially if you use the time intentionally. To sit there and just and ruminate on the worries or the woes or the burnout or the wishes isn't going to help you much. But if we can write things down, if we can land the planes that are circling the airport in our minds and we can put them down on paper, we start to figure out, our brains start to want to solve the problems. Our brains want to fix the issues so that we're not suffering as much anymore. So
Mhm.
simply the act of writing or collaborating or hiring a coach or hiring a therapist or working in conjunction with other women who are doing this work can help accelerate that process without needing a ton of time. But the way we use our time really matters.
Oh, yes. Time is something we definitely don't get back, do we?
We do not.
So I always say my time is precious. My time is precious. So,
Completely. So is your energy, so is your spirit, so is
yes.
like your dreams. They're all precious. We have to protect them.
And I can hear a lot of women saying, "Yeah, I want to take this time. I do have dreams." Probably some on the verge of tears, like, "This is me. This is me." But
Yes.
all I have energy for is, my baby right now. They're small. My husband, my mom. You have aging parents, and I love how you're saying, just take time. 1 minute.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute
Just
of
1
breath
minute.
work changes the
Right.
game for the next
That's
15.
right. And if fortunate enough to have daddy in the picture too, let daddy do the feeding so you have 5 minutes to go do something for you. Get
Mhm.
creative. We need to allow ourselves to get creative with how we spend our time. But it also, to be honest, I give a lot of tough love when I have these conversations with my clients because at the end of the day, there are seasons of life that we are truly at capacity. That may be the case, especially if we're talking about mamas with small kiddos. There are seasons that we need to surrender to a certain degree and to have not lower expectations, but to not give ourselves so much pressure to reach these high expectations of who we want to be. There is a season for change.
Mhm.
And I have found that there are seasons that we can allow ourselves to surrender and to be more present in this moment and not wish that it wasn't the case or wish it wasn't this way. But when we're not in that season of really needing to surrender to what is, if we think about mamas with little kiddos, then it is our responsibility to start taking ownership over what we're saying yes to, that's taking up all of our time, that does not
Mhm.
align with who we want to be. And we have to start saying no.
Yeah. Being a voice and advocate for yourself.
You
And
have to. How
sometimes
else can
that's
I do
hard.
it?
That's hard. It's hard. One of the things that I struggled with was my throat chakra, being a voice for my speaking up for myself. I always spoke in a whisper. And I only spoke loudly when I was at the point of, I have just had enough.
Yes.
And it was learning to use my voice all the time
Yes.
that changed the game from because you want to just scream, but it's learning how to do that. And in those moments, it was in those moments of stillness that a lot of crying happened. I'm not going to even lie to you, ladies, gentlemen, whoever's watching this. I'm not going to lie to you and say, "Oh, it was fantastic." It was not. Not
Tears
always.
are good. Tears are
You
great. Get those
you
tears
know,
out. Release
but
it.
at the
Absolutely.
end of the day, it's the release after that is so freeing.
That's
And
the thing.
it's a blessing to have. So it's nice to hear you say that because I
Yeah.
think we need to hear it more because everything now is more fast paced, inflation. It's just so many things changing around us, so many hardships happening. So it's nice to hear you say that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is important. It feels even more important these days since COVID, since we are back into the swing of things. The expectations are different in the workplace, in the parenting space, in the just being a functioning, successful human space, that it's been more challenging for so many of us to feel like we can still connect with who we want to be, connect with what we need, advocate for ourselves. It feels for so many right now like we're just getting swept up in this wave, this post
Mhm.
COVID wave of, okay, everything needs to be as it was, or better than it was, or more intense than it was. And so it's very easy for us to not see the openings to actually protect our spirit, our energy, our dreams, our motivation, our wants, because we just feel like there's something else louder that's pulling at us, that's tugging at us, that's robbing our
Mhm.
opportunities for some freedom in our lives right now. So it can be really challenging.
Survival. That's what's
Survival.
pulling and tugging, survival.
That's
I
right.
was out somewhere. I was out somewhere. The young lady was talking and she said, "Well, I have to come here every day and do this because my rent is now $2,000 and with utilities it's $300 and if I'm not here every day, I can't pay for that. So, if I'm not nice to you today, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about that." And I was like, "Wow." And all I said
Perspective.
to her was, "Sister gets better." And You know, it's easy to say that. I know she looked at me, she gave me that eye. Whatever. whatever.
Mhm.
But it does. It may not look like it right then, but it does. And I felt what she was saying because it's true, So it's nice to hear it's still possible to take time to regroup and rejuvenate. And it doesn't
Always.
have to cost you a dime
It
to
doesn't
do
have to
so.
cost you a dime. That's right. That's an important point. It doesn't have to cost you. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be some luxury spa day for you to actually feel better about your life. Actually, there's some really simple changes in our perspective, in our perception of what's going on, and the things that we celebrate. During COVID, I created this hashtag called Mini Joy. And I just, one day, it was just a COVID day, which meant that it was a day at home and there wasn't much going on. And
Mhm.
I just noticed my candle and I was just like, oh, just looking at my candle and smelling my candle and just noticing the flame flicker felt like this just a moment of gratitude, of happiness. I'm looking at my candle now. And so
Mhm.
it made me just think, God, it's such a mini joy. And then I started to hashtag mini joy just as an idea of like, you know what, maybe we can spread the word that life doesn't have to be about these huge milestone moments,
Mhm.
these huge milestone moments that everyone thinks I'll be happy when I have the house, I have the love, I have the kiddos, I have the lottery, I have the instead it's these little tiny mini joys that can really make our days from the most mundane feel magical. And so having just something as simple as that, lighting a candle, having a delicious beverage, writing yourself a love note, watching something funny on Netflix, these can be mini joys that don't cost anything. And we can just feel happiness in those moments despite the storm we may be going through right now.
Mm. I love it. Oh my gosh, very uplifting. I know one thing that really, really drew me to you was positive psychology. I love positive psychology, all aspects of it, the light and the dark. It gave me a different view of how I wanted to approach life. So I want to talk a little bit about that because how can positive psychology teach us about happier existence?
Mhm. I was so excited when I discovered positive psychology that there was a
Mhm.
science of happiness. I was like, are you kidding me? This
Yes.
is the
So
coolest science ever.
yes.
Right? I'd studied clinical psych for so long. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, there's a science of happiness. The
Mhm.
fact that the idea that this is not a mystery anymore, that it's not this mystery of what does happiness mean to you and how do you find the elusive happiness creature? It's actually a science. We actually have what's now known as like a formula to happiness.
Yeah.
So the way that positive psychology can inform our living a happier existence is really in what we've discovered over the years of research. One of them being that there are 6 tenets of positive psychology's idea of what living the good life looks like. So if we are in a place in our lives and we're not super thrilled, we're not thriving, we're still surviving, but
Mhm.
we really want to make positive change somehow somewhere, we can follow these 6 concepts, which are positive emotions, feeling engaged in our lives, positive relationships, having a sense of meaning, achievement, and vitality. So, the beauty of positive psychology, my favorite part about it right now as I coach clients is we get to change our lives, and you can just pick a category, pick one of these 6 concepts. Which of these concepts in your life aren't really being highlighted, aren't really being lived into, aren't making you happy? We can actually tweak that. We can tweak that category, how you're showing up for that, what actions you're taking, and you can literally improve your life today. If we
Mhm.
start with positive emotions, you can literally do something today that will boost your spirit, boost your mood, elicit a positive emotion today, right now. So the
Mhm.
fact that it's such an empowering science, we know what it takes to be happy, and you actually can just follow those ideas into a happier state of being is really exciting. I think a lot of people have the misconception that building happiness or creating happiness has to be hard. And
Right.
that we need to suffer to get there. And the reality is that's not true at all. We don't actually have to suffer to appreciate or to become happier. We get to choose that today. We have a lot more power than we'd like to give ourselves permission to accept over our happiness rating, our happiness score.
You made a great point. You said we have to choose it, that we can start it now. And that expands past socioeconomic status. Doesn't matter what your status, your socioeconomic status is. You can still achieve happiness in the moment and what
Right
you
now.
have in your life at that time,
That's right.
you know.
And a
And
quick way, I mean, with gratitude, we hear a lot about gratitude. It's become
oh
all the
yeah,
rage. Gratitude, gratitude, be more grateful. Yes,
yeah.
100%. Be grateful. Awesome. That can boost your mood right now. If you pause in your suffering, whatever the storm is that you're currently going through, and you just simply pause and you ask yourself, what is one thing that's actually happening in my life today that I'm grateful for? Not like I'm grateful for a roof over my head because it's too general, but something specific that's happened or happening to you in your life right now that you can be grateful for, you will boost your mood. But we can be grateful and desire something bigger and better in
Oh
our
yeah.
lives.
Doesn't
And
mean
it
stop
doesn't mean we're
dreaming.
not grateful, right? Everyone gets stuck on this one. Oh, I should just be
Mhm.
more grateful for what I have. What's wrong with me if I want something bigger or better or more? You get to be grateful and want for more. We get to have both.
Yeah, it doesn't mean stop dreaming. I always say dream big at any age.
That's right.
At any
Absolutely.
age.
Absolutely. There's
Mhm.
too many examples now of humans who have been in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who decided that they're going to start over or they're going to pursue a passion and they've become
Yes.
incredibly successful with their gift. It's never too late, but we don't want to mistake feeling grateful for allowing ourselves to want something more. It's not this or that. We get to have this and we get to have that too.
Mhm. I love that. It's so important to say. We're getting into the last part of the year, get into the holiday season. You get a lot of mixed emotions depending on where you are in life, what you can provide for, what you can have, what you can offer. And it's so important to say what you're saying right now. You know, the joy in the moment. It's not about the gift. It's not about what you can put in front of someone. It's about maybe that family member just walking through the door,
That's right.
maybe sitting on the sofa and being able to laugh, get out a deck of cards and playing some spades and and spending time with the family that's present.
I
And
love that.
I love that because we are getting into that time of year where, some want to go big and they can't, and that's okay. Find
Yeah.
that find that happiness in something
Yes.
else.
That's right. Find the appreciation for connection. Find the appreciation for bonding. Find the appreciation for creating memories together. That's what lasts forever. It's not the things. But I think it's such a good point. This is the time of year that people start to feel so much pressure. There's just pressure on being somebody that often disconnects us from who we truly are, but it's that
Mhm.
performative part of us, the part of us that makes others happy and keeps not ruffling any feathers and not upsetting Aunt Glenda if you want to say no to her invitation to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
So there's so much pressure that rises with this holiday tide that I think it does add a lot of extra noise for people. It makes it more difficult to really tune in to what you need and want the holidays to be about, or what you need and want the end of year to be about. Like, is this a season that you're going to coast to the finish line, or do you want to finish strong and proud on December 31st of 2023 and say, like, I took care of me. I set those boundaries. I said no to things that
Yes.
don't serve me. I designed a lit up life. Like, I get to celebrate those things and not just get caught up in like the storm of holiday drama.
It's so important. With the podcast, I like to make sure that the conversations that we have are so relatable because everyone is at a different stage of life. No one is at the same stage as someone else. It's just not possible. But the messaging from the guests on the podcast are really designed to ignite that fire to say, I got this. And what you're saying today has I got this written all over it, big, bold, bright letters, you know,
100%. 100%.
reminding people, I got this. And you do.
That's right. Yeah,
You do.
that's right. It's not about anyone else. It's not about what other people approve of or who they want you to be, or you fitting into a box or a label or a persona. It's you get to be you and you get to live the dreams and you get to create what you want. You need to be deliberate. You need to call yourself out sometimes, and you need to take some radical responsibility for who you are and how you're living your life. But you get to. So absolutely, like you've got this. You've always got this because you've got you. So when you have yourself and you have your own back, like you really do become unstoppable.
Mhm. So you said something, I can't let it pass. The radical responsibility. Girlfriend, let's just pause here and talk about that for a second.
I always say that, whenever I say something like, radical responsibility, there's always that part of my brain that's like, ooh, someone's not going to like what I just said. They're not going to like that, because the idea that a lot of us want to buy into, the belief that a lot of us want to buy into is that life is happening to me. I'm a victim. This is just my lot in life. This is how it is. You don't understand. It's really hard. And I'm here as a coach to say, I totally understand. And you get to hold yourself to a higher standard than living a victim life for the rest of your life and being
Mm,
miserable in misery with this mindset forever. So taking radical responsibility just means that we own our stuff. And we don't
yes.
necessarily need
Own
to
your
add a
sugar
layer
honey
of
iced
judgment.
tea. Did you pick that up? I'm gonna
I
say
was
that
gonna
now for the people in the back. Own your sugar honey iced tea.
I didn't know this is a cursing podcast, so I don't know. So because I don't know, you're right. There's some sugar and honey there. And that's the truth of it. Like we need to own our stuff. We need to own it. We don't have to judge it, criticize ourselves and feel shame and terrible. We just need
Mhm.
to own it. This is how my life is. This is how I'm experiencing my life. I have responsibility for how I experience my life. I may not have control over everything that happens to me, but where I have responsibility is to take ownership over how I experience my life. So it's for some people that are listening, they're going to think, oh my gosh, that's everything. I need to take more responsibility for my life. That's going to help me propel forward and be creating this forging forward with this path towards more happiness and contentment. And others who hear it are going to say, that's not fair. I don't want to take
Yeah,
responsibility. I want to just survive this and hope for a better day tomorrow and use hope as my strategy,
yeah.
which it's not.
They
So
want
it really
certainty
is.
as their strategy.
Of course, it's that doesn't exist. Maybe some people also want, purple unicorns as part of their strategy. It doesn't
Dr. Wendy,
exist.
really?
It just doesn't exist. So we don't want to settle for the life of, using hope that's not a strategy, or using certainty that's not a strategy, or guarantee it's not a strategy. It's not how life works.
Mm-mm.
We have to accept reality a little bit here.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much. It is so important to say, especially with young people, we have a wide range of listeners. And one part of my show I like to focus on emerging adults, young people 15 to 20 that really feel misunderstood. No one understands me, no one knows what I'm going through, nobody gets it. But the world is constantly spitting. So a lot of people have walked in that path. Okay. How would you approach them to explain radical responsibility? Now, I know that the way you just put it is very clear, plain, clear cut. But the person that has lived through some things, they're like, yeah, that's for me. But
Hmm.
the young person that's just starting to live, they might,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hear that. How would you clarify and revise so that they know that this message is also for them as well?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And as you shared this, it made me think back to those years of my life too, and completely feeling these moments of crying and being angry and feeling
Mhm.
so alone and not understood and no one gets it. I just think that there's a lot of power to honoring that truth of that experience. Where how as your brains develop, as your emotions develop, as your relationships are developing, you are going through such an intense period of learning and becoming. And I think that we can hold ourselves to different levels of standards depending on the season of life that we're in. So for young folks going through this chapter of life that just feel like no one gets it and don't just tell me to take responsibility, I was just grounded, or whatever else is going on in our lives.
Mhm.
The idea is like, well, honor how you feel. Like how you feel is completely legitimate. And you know what? There's a lot of people and maybe adults that are so detached and disconnected from this chapter of life that they really don't get it anymore, and they don't relate, and they don't understand it, and they still feel like there's a bottom line and rules are rules and get it together. So I just think that honoring how you feel and letting yourself have those feelings is completely legitimate. I also think that there's a space for, and maybe at this chapter of life, maybe it's a sliver, but maybe there's a sliver of space for considering the possibility that I could potentially look at this situation from a different lens. And that different lens that I opt into, that I might just choose to entertain today, just to see if it kind of unhooks me from some of the struggle and some of the suffering. As I look through this alternative lens, I start to feel a little bit less heavy, or a little bit more light, or a little bit more hopeful. That it's not that I have to take responsibility for all the noise and drama that's encircling me in my life, or making me feel suffocated in my life, which was a very real feeling I remember clearly. Yes. It's really about taking responsibility for becoming more aware that we have choices in our moments, that we have choices of how we are perceiving a situation. And that in itself could be so powerful, just to go from a place of, this is the worst day of my life, to, hold on a second. What is going on in my life that doesn't feel like the worst? Is there anything that I could focus on that's better than that, than the worst? When have I been through tough times before? How did I get through those hard times? What helped me? What allowed me to move through it without getting stuck in it? Who do I need to lean on, or who can I ask for support from? All of these tiny little shifts are just allowing our perception of the awful to change 10%, 1%, 1 degree. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that at this stage of life that we're talking about, it's really much more probably about those little slivers of light that can shine through, versus when we're adults and we've gone through many iterations of ourselves and many hardships and moments of building resilience, that we can hold ourselves to a different standard, because we actually do have more wisdom at this stage of life that we can use to inform our decisions. That chapter of life is not as informed. It's a lot more reactive, and that is completely normal and developmentally appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because, as parents, whether your child is a teenager or an adult, different stages of life and the different forms of wisdom that we can bring to that young person. But, young people, I think back on it all the time. It really didn't sound good unless somebody that I wasn't related to, that didn't know my mom or my dad, said it. Then I was like, wait a minute, that makes sense. Maybe I'll try that.
That's right. That's right. And actually that could be, honestly, one of the things I say can be a positive about social media. So we know that our teens are on social media, and we can curate our experience on social media to support learning some of these things that we're not going to take as seriously from somebody in our core circle. But if we hear it differently from someone we trust, or someone we admire, or somebody who inspires us, or somebody who just helps us think differently about the world, it may click differently. So it's a really good point. Who you surround yourself with and who you allow yourself to consume information from is going to have a very different impact on you. And as a teen, when you want to reject everything that parents or caregivers or peers even may say, finding your people that may not even be in your direct world can be a really positive influence on your mindset, and therefore how you experience some hardships.
I love it. It's so important. It's a message. I hope you guys are paying attention here. It's a message. I have another question for you. Well, I actually have two. I like to say another question, and then I'm like, really, it's two? Okay. If there was one thing a woman listening could do to change her life right now, where should she start?
It's always with awareness. It's always with the question, what am I wishing was different in my life today, right now, today? Could be a different answer than this morning. Could be a different answer than last night. It could be a different answer than last week. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because we can constantly be evolving into the person we want to be. But today, the question is, what do I wish was different in my life right now? And then the next question is the follow-up question that matters really the most after we build that awareness, is the question that's going to lead us into action, which is, what's one tiny, tiny little micro thing I can do today that might start moving the needle in the direction of what I want? It's just that simple. Like, if we could let this work be simple, at face value. There's work to be done. Let's be honest. It's not going to be an overnight shift, but the beginning stage of just hooking into something better for yourself can be as simple as, what do I wish was different today? And maybe look at different parts of your life and really identify the most important one to you. And the second follow-up is just, what's one tiny micro thing I can do, an action I could take today that might actually give me the chance to move the needle forward, build a little bit of that spark, that energy, that excitement, that optimism. And then we get to talk about how to keep it going and how to build momentum and create sustainability. But for that first day, for that woman that's just like, where do I start? Ask yourself 2 simple questions. Write down your 2 simple answers. Do not overthink it. You need to let yourself have that first reactive answer in each question and just go for it. Do the thing. It's going to make all the difference for you today. And you will dismiss it as not being very powerful because it's not enough, or what happens next, or I don't know where to go from here. Forget all of that noise and just focus on those 2 things. It will change your day completely.
It's just starting small steps. Small steps are really big steps.
They sure compound. They sure do compound over time. They really matter. It's like, it's very important for us to not bite off more than we can chew. And this is actually something I coach a lot of women on, is they get so excited that they want to go for the gold. They want to go really far, really fast. And so they bite off the whole goal, and then they find themselves overwhelmed or discouraged right off the bat because it didn't create the results in 24 hours that they may have desired. And then they lose steam instead of creating, much like if you think about hiking a mountain, you literally cannot skip a step. You need to take every single step to reach the peak. Every single one matters. Every single one counts. So if we look at our journeys towards the next chapter of our lives being amazing, every single micro action, every mindset shift, everything that you do in the name of that goal matters.
It reminds me of when I first started. I walk every morning now, but when I first started, I was on this thing. I am going to jog every morning, and I am going to get up to 5 miles. Okay. And it clicked up. And one day when I was really tired and I wanted to go back home, and I was like 3.5 miles away from home. And I said to myself, the only way I'm going to get there is if I turn around and run or walk back. Because I can't just stay right here and make a home.
I cannot lay here in these leaves and expect squirrels to feed me their nuts for the winter. It's not going to work that way. Yeah.
So you got to keep going.
You got to keep going. It's literally the one thing that sets those who succeed apart from those who don't, is the choice to keep going. You cannot fail if you don't quit. And it sounds so cliche, but as soon as you start taking tiny steps forward, and then you get to eventually look back and see how far you've come, you will realize that the details matter. Each little step matters. Everything you desire matters. We just don't spend enough time pursuing what we really want. And we settle way too much for status quo living, autopilot living, the mundane life living. We don't hold ourselves to a standard of something better. And we can. And yes, you may have to walk back 3 miles back, or to a mile and a half back. You may have to go
and sit down and take a breath and take a break.
Take a breath. Have space.
Just keep going.
That's right. Get back up. Just keep going. There's moments of grit. We do need to allow there to be some grit, a little elbow grease in our goals and journey. That's normal. So we can't shy away from the hard. We're choosing our hard by not pursuing our goals. That's hard enough to live a life that we're dissatisfied with. Ooh. We can choose the alternative hard here.
So my last question, what advice would you give your younger self to help cultivate self-trust?
This is a great question. When I think about my younger self and I think about cultivating self-trust, it's really going to be the message of choosing to trust myself more, which really means I picture this in my mind. I picture a radio, like an old school radio. And I picture, you would change the station and you might kind of roll up and down the radio and do the different, and then there's a dial for the volume. This is how I picture it. I picture that the radio choices are the actions I could take to align with like really who I want to be in my life. As far as I know to be, my younger self knows. She doesn't know everything of who she wants to be, but she knows she wants something better than this, less struggle than this. So we're trying to tune into the dial on the radio that's really about the actions to feel better about who she is. And then the volume is all about turning down the volume of all the distractions and the noise that conflicts with that. It's like the scratchy sound in the background, which is the teachers, the peers, the bullies, the parents, the friends, the toxic relationships, the peer pressure, this negative social media influences. I would tell her, can you just turn that down to zero? Like, mute that. They don't actually matter. They don't matter, and they're not right. We think they're right. We think others are right before us. They're not right. You're right. Follow your instinct here. Start trusting yourself through action. Just tune into the right radio station that feels more like a clear path forward towards her, towards the version of you that you want to be, and turn down the dial on the noise. They aren't right. They aren't truer than your own thoughts about yourself and what you want. And they're not more legitimate or valuable than your own desires. So stop listening. Stop listening. Don't wait till you're in your late teens, early 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s to make this change. Like, start now. Just start now. Just start building self-trust now. And we do that through action. Just go. Just go and trust and go and trust and go and trust and keep going and trusting and pivoting and going and trusting and pivoting every time you need to. That's it.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has been very, very enlightening, and just for the soul, for the mind. I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much for your time. And Me Timers, you heard it here first with Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe, where it is your time to be kind to your mind. You guys have a great day now.